Hello and welcome to Purl and Plume, a knitting and fiber arts podcast. My name is Kelly. I can be found on Ravelry and on Instagram as Kiki Carlisle. Welcome back to viewers who have been here before with me, and welcome to new viewers. Today we're going to start with some dyeing projects. Last weekend I did a little bit of dyeing I always dye yarn for projects, for specific projects that I have in mind, and then I pretty faithfully have used the yarn for those projects, and then there's often some left over that I get to play around with. So I am thinking about knitting the rosier sweater, which I will either put in the show notes, which I have yet to ever make show notes, but someday, or I'll add right here. It is a beautiful fingering weight sweater with a floral and leaf motif up here, color work all throughout, but with lots of welcome modifications in the pattern. And I am thinking of doing the body with some yarn that I dyed, and the color work, I have some yarn already, some fingering weight yarn. You don't need very much for the color work at all. And then I wanted some pops of some brights, so I did dye some yarn for that. So the body is going to be this lovely kind of caramel tonal color. And I can open one of these skeins up for you. You can see there's some darker bits there and some lighter bits, and I just think there's some very, very pale tones there, and then it gets pretty dark. You'll see this is actually doing a pretty good job of showing you what it looks like. So it's kind of a butterscotchy caramel neutral, and then I have some yarn that I've previously dyed that is a very inky blue. I actually used it for my Zweig, which I think was on a previous episode, for the body of the Zweig. It's a super inky midnight blue with some tonality to it. In fact, the skein I used for the Zweig had little pops of white that I ended up over dyeing when I was done knitting it, and it worked out perfectly. But the other skein, the skein that I have left, doesn't have any of the white in it. So yes, caramel for the body, kind of a tonal. I don't think I'm going to do anything more to this. It's all dry now and it's been washed and dealt with. I thought maybe I'd add some more pops of color, but like little tiny speckles. But one of my struggles with dyeing is kind of restraining myself. And then it's very easy to go overboard, and you can't go backwards. You can make things darker and you can add, but you can't unless you want to bleach. I just don't want to deal with bleach, and that's hard to control. So here we go. Caramel for the body, and then navy, and then there are green leaves on it, and then I want little oh my gosh, wow, this is bright. Pops of hot pink. Very small pops of hot pink. I mean, I think when you show these two together, it doesn't look so great on the screen, but I love a neutral and like really rich shades with some kind of surprisingly bright and happy pops of color. So I dyed this hot pink, and I have to say it's hard for me to get a solid when I'm dyeing, unless you make it really, really dark, and this is very solid hot pink. Oh my god, so bright. This doesn't have a range to it. I have thought, of course, of going back in and maybe with like a deep plum and kind of adding, even just dipping half of it in the plum so that you get kind of a variegated effect. I'm not sure, but I think that there's going to be a lot of this left over. I really just want to use it a tiny, tiny bit in the sweater for fun. So here we go, my hot pink, beautiful, happy. It does make me happy, I have to say. I wouldn't want everything to look like that, but it makes me very happy. So then That was the fingering weight yarn I dyed, and it's Felici from Knit Picks, which is their fingering weight. It is a merino nylon blend, great for socks and other fingering weight projects. It'll be pretty sturdy, I think, I hope. It's really inexpensive and fun for just a novice, just having fun dyer like myself. And this other yarn that I dyed, I can't remember if I talked about it last time. I purchased this at Rhinebeck. It's probably the most luxurious yarn I've ever purchased. It's not cashmere, okay? But it is Cormo, which has all of the characteristics of yarn that I love. It's sheepy, it's woolly looking, and it's also soft. And it's woollier looking than merino, but I have to say it's probably just as soft as merino. So I bought it undyed, and I got it from Fox Hill. I think it's Fox Hill Farms. Again, I will add that detail. At her booth in Rhinebeck, and she does not sell online, and she does not sell to retailers. So I could probably write her a letter or send her an email and ask for another skein, but I was kind of limited. And I thought, no, I'm going to make it work. I bought 3 skeins. This is going to be a sweater. So I dyed it. And this is all from the same batch, but I was not being super controlled. And I was just kind of having fun. So it's fascinating, right? So first of all, this yarn is really plumpy, and I don't have equipment that allows for a lot of space. So ideally, I would have had more space between these skeins in the water so that they would be more consistent. But I'm not selling this, and this is just for me. So this is just for me. It's not a problem. So originally, I had wanted this to be kind of an ochre with pops of color. The ochre did really weird things with the Cormo. And what I have found, sorry, the wind is blowing, my wind chimes are going, the cats are everywhere. So what I found with dyeing, which probably every dyer really knows, but I'm learning as I go, is that superwash does what you'd expect it would from the dye. Like, it's pretty stable, and this is what you're supposed to get, and that's what you're going to get, and it's easy to control. And speckles are much easier on superwash. This is not superwash, and I prefer knitting with non-superwash, and I prefer sweaters that aren't superwash for a variety of reasons that we can talk about later, and maybe you know those, but dyeing non-superwash is a lot harder. So when I took them out of the dye bath, and I expected them to be kind of a golden ochre color, which is what has happened with that same dye with superwash yarn, it really was muddy, super inconsistent. Parts of the skein had nothing, like I had stirred it, I don't know, I'm sure I made mistakes, but that said, it was not what I wanted. And so I added more of the ochre color, and then I added other colors, and then I was just like, what the hell, I'm just gonna go crazy. No, I only added a few colors, but I think that dye powders that I bought separated a little because I was adding them to another container and then pouring them in, but probably they weren't mixed perfectly. Anyway, it was a happy accident. I was really scared when I took the Cormo out, when I cooled it and then rinsed it and then hung it to dry. Many of the strands were sticking to each other, and I thought that I had felted it. And I was pretty close to crying because this was $30 a skein, and that's not something I don't usually spend that much money on yarn. And I felt really silly. But I didn't felt it. I don't know why it did that. Because it's woolly, because it was sticking to itself. I don't know. So what we have here is 3 skeins, and it's really not doing it justice. This all looks very red. In real life, it's more of browns. This one has lots of mauve, but you can see there are pops of gold and green and pinky and a little bit purpley blue there. This is the more muted skein. Then we have this skein, which it kind of has more of the colors and kind of less tones of them and more saturated colors. Here you can see there's a lot of gold. And they're still the same colors that are in this one, but they're brighter. So that's skein 2. And then skein 3, yeah, has more red. And in here it looks like it's really red. It's not. It's not. It's a really earthy, like all the reds that you're seeing are more earthy, rusty reds. And so the third skein just has a lot more of that red, and the colors are just have a wash of that kind of earthy clay red over them. My Instagram post, my most recent one, I've taken so many pictures of the sweater because I couldn't get it right on my phone, so I used my son's because my children have better phones than I do, because that's the kind of mom I am. That actually shows it better. And this is for the Cozy Classic Raglan. So I purchased the pattern from Petite Knit, the Raglan pattern. I can't think of the name of it right now. I am so silly. And I am still gonna make that. Oh, it's the no frill sweater. I am still going to make this sweater, but I'm going to make it with sport weight yarn. And I was like, you know what? I really love the Raglan. I'm going to buy another pattern. And I bought Jessie May's Cozy Classic Raglan pattern. And that is what I am making with my hand-dyed yarn. Now, why did I do that? They're both Raglan sweaters, but I like learning. The Petite Knit is really more for sport weight and fingering weight fibers, and the Cozy Classic Raglan pattern has a lot more adaptations and modifications for other weights of yarn, and they're different. They're going to be different. So that's what I did, and I have to say I started 2 sweaters last week, and which I often have a few going, but what I do is I kind of get to certain parts and then I leave the other 2 off, finish one, bring the other 2 up to the queue, and then add on a 3rd sweater. And they're all kind of different. So I started the Cozy Classic Raglan. It looks so red here. It is really more brown and muted than this, but that's what I have to deal with. But what I did was I started with the mauve-y, more faded skein, and then I transitioned slowly to the brighter one, and I'm ending it with the more red skein. And in the pattern, she has a lot of modifications and tips for shifting colors. If you wanted to do a making some noise. If you wanted to do a fade, which is what I did, she gives you tips on how to do that. And actually the pattern's amazing. It has so many tips for modifying the sleeves, and she's like, if you want to use this weight yarn, this is what you can do, and if you want your, so it really feels like a lesson. It's so clearly written, and there are so many sizes offered in the pattern. So the one thing I didn't do is she has you do a tubular cast on, and I did not want to, sorry, I'm looking at my chicken outside. She's very still, but I think she's fine. I didn't feel like learning anything in that moment. I just wanted to cast it on so badly, so I just did my I just did the long tail. And it's totally fine. And I made a couple little mistakes with the Raglan increases, but you can't tell. They're really beautiful. Like, look at that. I love the way it looks. And I don't know, I've only made 1 or 2 other Raglan sweaters, and I have to look back at them, but like I don't feel like they started the increases so early on. You start the increases while you're doing the short rows. And oh, that's actually the back of the sweater. Here's the front. And so, yeah, so I made a couple little errors, like here, my stitch marker fell, and I put it back in the wrong place. So I have this one area where it's like not totally matching. I don't care, I'm not gonna notice. And I think because I'm using this yarn that's got so much going on, that it's gonna be totally fine. Anyway, so I am at the bottom ribbing. This is a very slightly cropped sweater. Mine, I am making the size extra small, but the pattern includes a few inches of positive ease, so I just didn't want mine to be super baggy. I didn't want all the positive ease, so it's not going to be tight, but it's going to not have the recommended positive ease. I'm also making it a little longer. I don't want it to be, I'm going to be wearing tank tops under it because that's what I do under my sweaters, but I don't want it to be something I have to worry about riding up or showing my midriff. I'm a teacher. I wear my sweaters to work. I can't really, they actually think it's hilarious when I wear my like crop sweaters with something underneath. I'm like, oh, Miss Carl's wearing a crop sweater. But I want to be covered. So, really excited. I'm going to be starting the sleeves this week. I could be done by next week. Yay. So that was my yarn dyeing and my first work in progress. I have a second work in progress I'm really excited about. And it is living in my Loopy Mango bag. Oh, and this sweater that I just showed you is living in my Kim Carlino art bag. She's an artist, a local artist who happens to be a very good friend of mine. And she makes these beautiful tote bags with her prints on them. She makes murals, she paints murals, and also large and small, beautiful, beautiful paintings. Okay, so in this bag, you saw this yarn last week. I cast this on, and this is the progress I have made on my, I'll show you my color work sweater. Gotta always have lots of sweaters going on. My Bright Feather by Jen Steingast of Knit Love Wool. I talk about the sweater a lot, maybe a bit more in the last podcast. I don't know how much I did. I don't remember. But I have completed the short rows, and I'm in the midst of the color work. I'm actually almost done with the color work part of the yoke. And I really don't think I have that many more increases left. I'm really loving, and this is actually more true color-wise than that other sweater, which it tends to blow out like red and orange. So this is a very simple, lovely roll neck collar, which was kind of fun not having to do ribbing for a collar, and it felt like you were just getting into it. And then there's short row shaping in the back, and then this beautiful feather design, which I just freaking love. I'm super excited about this, but I have to say I dyed my yarn and just really wanted to get it on the needles, so I have not touched this in about a week. That is that. But I will probably, once I get the other sweater on I think I'll probably pick this up when I'm done with my Cozy Raglan, because I still have to finish the cardigan that I'm not even going to show again today, because it's embarrassing how many times I've had to like show it. Okay, so what else do we want to talk about? Oh, what I'm wearing. I guess I could talk about what I'm wearing now that I made this last summer 2019, and this is all yarn that I've dyed, and it is all from Knit Picks. It's all their just fingering weight yarn, not the Felici, because I just bought that for the first time. Stroll or Hawthorne, I'm not quite sure. One of them has a little bit of sparkle in it, and I just made this up. I basically held the fingering weight double, so it's all fingering weight yarn held double. I just had so much fingering weight yarn that I dyed for fun, for a couple for projects. Okay, I lied. So sometimes I have dyed it, not for projects, but I had a lot left over from some projects, and I just wanted to make myself a fun cardigan using all these leftovers. So what I did was I looked at a DK weight sweater, yoke sweater pattern that I had already made. I don't even know which one. And I cast on the number of stitches for a size small. And I did a very small amount of ribbing. You can kind of see. Okay. So I knit it in the round. And there are pictures of this on my Instagram, maybe on Ravelry. I knit it in the round, and I just basically knit, here, let me slide this over. I knit it to about hip length, and then I steeked it. I'm going to turn this back around now. I steeked it and had my mother help me because I'm not into sewing, at least not at this point in my life. And because it's superwash, we just sewed several. Like, no, I put in maybe one strand of thicker yarn in the middle, or maybe two. Yeah, two, right, to make parallel lines to guide us where we would cut it. And she sewed on the outside of those two lines of worsted weight yarn that I wove in, just maybe 3 times because it is such slippery superwash wool. And then I picked up stitches all along the edge here and all the way around, and I did a garter stitch collar. And at about here, I started just, I did short rows, basically, to make the top of it wider. So you can see, like around here, I was just going back up and back and forth to make this wide enough. And then I stopped doing the short rows and kept going. And I basically followed all the tips for doing a fade. So I was holding 3 strands of yarn together at a time, and when I'd get bored or be like, oh, I want to try another one, or it looked a little like there wasn't a lot left, I would just switch one of the strands with another, and then I'd do that for a while, then I'd switch a different strand with another, and so it just kind of fades really evenly. And this, what I love about it is it really, like, it really lets colors shine together, but shine because you're seeing them next to other colors. So this pink, and I don't wear a whole lot of pink, but I have to say this pops of pink just make me really happy. And the garter collar, which I have to say I noticed was on the Comfort Fade Cardi by... Okay, I'm back. My neighbor was borrowing a cake pan. So I followed that fading tip. I think that's what I was talking about. And I love the squishy garter collar. I probably, and then I did a long bit of ribbing here. I don't know why, I just did. And I think I could have made the sleeves a little longer, although I probably just didn't. I don't think I blocked it super hard. I could totally block this better. And anyway, I really love this cardigan, and it stays on my shoulders. I've made cardigans that don't do that so well. I did increases here that I have little eyelets for. You can't really see it in the busyness of it so much, but that was kind of a fun little thing. And it feels great to be able to just make up a sweater. I mean, I have no thoughts of eventually like designing sweaters for other people, but it's fun for me. And it was fun to use up a bunch of yarn that I had lying around, because I don't really, okay, I'm not gonna lie, I would love it if I had a giant supply of yarn, but I don't have a lot of space in my house, and it feels good to me to use up what I have. So this is what I'm wearing. And I think what I was going to talk about next is, I was going to talk about rug hooking a little. Like, I've done a little bit of rug hooking and I want to get back into it, but it's hard for me to stop knitting right now. So I kind of had lost my rug hooking mojo. But this is a project I made for my stepdaughter, and she's really into succulents and cacti. So I drew this cactus and flowers with Sharpie on some monk cloth, which is kind of like cross stitch fabric, but not exactly. And then I just kind of had fun with color, and I just winged it. This is why I can't ever podcast at home, because people are in and out all the time. My son just got back from a college interview. Anyway, ooh, it's kind of like a sunset effect on the pillow and on my sweater. What do you think, honey? Do you like it?
Yeah, it's really cool, actually.
Yeah, it's really cool. Okay, so that's one. And I would like to get back into rug hooking, but are you going to be my live audience? Because I don't have jokes for you to laugh at.
Okay.
But go ahead, do what you want to do. And this is just a little, I call it my leaf sketch pillow. It's basically, the background is, I had a little bit of this kind of cream and a little bit of a cooler kind of oatmeal, and then I just had some fun making leaves. It's another pillow. I've actually made a lot of things and given them away, but they are on my Instagram feed if you wanted to search for inspiration. I haven't used any other people's designs because I kind of like making on my own. I really want to get back into that in 2020. I have two kind of crafting goals, and one is to do more hooking, rug hooking, and one is to get into sock making, because I have made one sock and I frocked it, and then I started a second sock and I don't like it. And it's really, I haven't even gotten to the heel. It's a saga. A saka. Okay, sorry. Anyway, my sweet stepdaughter, gave me yarn for the holidays. And she had fun picking out colors of yarn. Not colors that I would some of them I would totally pick out. But I love many colors. I love most colors. I could almost say I love all colors. And so I'm thinking, if I could get into sock making, I could use some of these for socks, because I was reading recently that if you wanted to make a heavier weight sock, but you still want it to be sturdy and it doesn't have nylon in it, you could mix it with a fingering weight nylon and have a kind of heavy slipper sock that's also sturdy. So I've got these two greens that are Cascade Alpaca Lana d'Oro. She just went through the store and was like, oh, this is pretty, oh, this is pretty. And that's kind of fun to get a yarny gift from a kid. So she got me these two greens, which are lovely. And then this, which is coming out much more red. It's really more of a salmon-y orange color. Yeah, red. Something happens to red on my computer. And then this, oh, and that is Debbie Bliss Cashmerino Aran. This is Schockenmeyer Merino Extra Fine Silky Soft 120 with Tencel. And Cascade Longwood Superwash Merino. So I don't know what I'm going to do, but I think these will be great for, my child has bronchitis, so He's coughing. He's feeling better though. I think these could be great for color work for hats. I could make some great mittens, slippers. So I think this could be fun for those things. In fact, I do have to make slippers for a coworker, and I'm thinking alpaca and one of these blues. Okay, I'm back again because teenagers, neighbors, chickens, life. So here we are. I think I was talking about wanting to do other crafting projects, including socks and more rug hooking. And I could even just, so I ordered shorter, I ordered shorter needles in a size 1 and an 8-inch. I don't know if that's going to help me for socks. Anyway, I did order smaller needles for my Chow-Gu set so that I could knit socks. And I hear that it sounds like people really like the Addy needles. Maybe I'll try those out. People like to use Magic Loop. I haven't really, I have tried it a couple times. I'm sure I can do that easily. I usually use double pointed. So I think I need to branch out. And I also need to schedule my crafting time because I also would like to make more time for painting. And I just get so compulsive about knitting that it's hard to branch out. So I don't really make resolutions usually. I'm always trying to be more balanced in my time and in my life. And so that is where I'm going with that. I think I need to do a better job of, during the school year, keeping track of what's going on in the world, because I have a somewhat stressful job and I'm the mother of 3 teens, 2 of whom can be a little challenging or a little needy, and so although they're totally growing up and they're awesome, all of them, but I have a tough job and I feel like I come home and I just need me time and I need to zone out and do my crafting, and there's not a lot of space for lots of other things when you're parenting full-time and working full-time. So that's that. So balance is always kind of the key. And I'm getting there. Yeah, okay. Well, I hope you have a great week. I will maybe check in next week if I have some things to show you, and other than that, I probably won't be back for a couple weeks, but I'm really hoping to get some sock mojo and some hooking mojo and to finish a couple sweaters. Okay, ciao, and have a fabulous